Welcome to the Toronto Daily News for Thursday, January the 24th. So the UK might start to regulate the way that celebrities promote products online. They want them to, like, if you do a Snapchat about some products you love and you're secretly getting paid for it, you have to not be secretly getting paid for it. You have to like disclose it you have to disclose that it's an ad that you just have to disclose that you're being paid. This is what they want. So Maduro in Venezuela wants the United States, all the US people out, all the Americans out, like American representatives and stuff. Trump's like, no, we're not going to leave. And Democracy Now! Has run this whole thing basically asking whether is this a coup or is this not a coup in Venezuela. The U.S. flight safety situation is getting so sketchy at the moment that the union, some union people are saying it's just unsafe, and they have no way of even estimating how the entire network could fail all at once. And they have, I mean, how would you feel about your Uber driver just came off of a 10-hour shift as a flight safety person, and they're on like hour 4 of their Uber shift, and they're, obviously on amphetamines or something like that. Or your air traffic controller just came off of their 6-hour Uber Uber shift. Trump has tweeted that he will delay the State of the Union address till after the government shutdown is over. How much more 2019 could you possibly get than that? Neither the Democratic nor the Republican bills to try to get, solve the shutdown worked. They both failed because the Republican ones were like, give us a down payment on the wall. And the Democratic one was like, just fund the government temporarily. Meanwhile, this U.S. Commerce Secretary is getting in so much shit because he's like, I don't understand why government workers are going to food banks when they could just get loans, and government workers are like, are you freaking kidding me? So CBC National has introduced Canadians to the art form known as slow lit. I don't know if you've ever watched slow TV before. It's like the fireplace TV thing, or like train TV where it's just from the front of a train or whatever. So this guy in Toronto is writing stories designed to put you to sleep but not be boring. So a morning, early morning, I don't know if the stabbing was in the early mornings. This is in the Jane and St. Clair area, but it was reported in the early morning to first responders. It was in a basement suite of this house on Mold Avenue or Street or whatever in this area, and while the news crew was there, this teenage girl who lived in the place apparently left, completely distraught and stuff, and they agreed not to show the footage of her. So they videotaped her, so she apparently this was some kind of domestic incident. I mean, obviously, the press interviewed the neighbor across the street, whose comments were really strange. He was like, well, that's so tragic, but what can you do? Moving on. The TTC board, they had this meeting, and on the same day as this insane line 1 breakdown because of some equipment that they're gonna reinstall soon, but they're basically like, look, yeah, all our maintenance is delayed. We're we're underfunded. Hello. So the TCC board is like, yeah, we need to increase rates. So they want to boost rates by 10 cents starting in the spring. So their budget gap is like, is not much compared to the Gardner reconstruction budget. This was a whole part of the argument at City Hall when they were discussing what to do with the Gardner. They were saying like we could just put in a nice, 8-lane boulevard, like 4 lanes each way, nice cycle tracks and wide sidewalks on either side will be nice. And it'll be intersections instead of interchanges. So in some cases it'll be faster, some cases it'll be slower. And the other argument was, if we do that, we have a transit plan already in place. This Gardner reconstruction doesn't give us any transit plan. Plus, we could use a bunch of the money saved to cover the TTC budget gap. This was pointed out over and over and over again. So after defending this very dubious infrastructure project that really goes against the trend of, the trend is towards highway teardown in urban places. And so not only is this a dead highway, but it's kind of a dead idea these days in terms of like moving people around in downtown. So after championing this, like this was Mayor Tory's whole purpose in life, is to champion this and then to try to convince everybody to look to the province and the country to fund transit. So in Mississauga, at an industrial work site, a propane explosion slammed a couple people back, completely wrecked their hair is gone, their clothes, and it was a big a really insane industrial accident. All the people nearby just had crazy shock experiences from it. This mom in Quebec with her daughter in the car was trying to drive across a train tracks, and it's on an angle, and the crossing is it dips at the tracks, so she gets stuck, and she's going forward and back. She can't get out. The train slams into her car just seconds after she bails out with her daughter. Insane incident. Somebody posted footage to YouTube that they got on the 401, and it's not dated, but it looks like recently, of somebody wiping their windshield with a broom thing with the tag still hanging off of it. And it really looks like just somebody's trying to create a spectacle or whatever. It looks like a staged, YouTube or a staged incident or prank or something like that. But she's just it's insane. The province is going to consider unlimited class sizes. I mean, this is my way to phrase it, but so back in the day there was, and this is just for kindergarten, primary. So back in the day, most of the classes were more than 25 students. And the Liberals, when they came into power provincially, they thought let's just fix this. So now, under the Liberal policy, most of them are under 25 students. Now, of course, the Conservatives are back, and of course, they want to lift that threshold so that they can increase class sizes for kindergarten and primary students. Surprise, surprise. So this your ward news, the founders, the two people who publish this little newspaper, they say it's the biggest Indigenous supported newspaper in the world. It's just these two are so wackadoodle. It's I can't, I can't. No, biggest Christian supported paper. but they also claim to be like indigenous owned and operated or whatever. This like, yeah, we're like Christian natives satirically writing about how terrible the Jews and women are. And it's insane that we're getting into trouble and we're going to keep crusading for the truth. I just can't. So a Dixon Road family had to flee their home. It was like flooding. They're in this basement apartment of a tower. And there's flooding going on all over the city. So also the people in that Wellesley building downtown on Wellesley are apparently flushing their toilets using fire hoses that the firefighters have provided. Fortunately, the building has heat. Insane. So the Toronto police have apparently found some family members to make contact with who know the woman who was run over by a garbage truck while she was sleeping in an alley on a vent that has warm air coming up through it. I really don't have time to do this, but I think I have a design solution to this. It's just the reason I can't be a journalist is I get ideas to say stuff at the wrong times, like talking, okay. I apologize in advance for talking about a design idea after reporting on something related to this woman's death, but I'm going to do this. My contribution is I think we should be setting up little shelters downtown that put in basically a double shelter, or just a tent within a tent type of thing, but the inside is like sealed and has its own ventilation. But the air coming in is getting warmed, it's getting heated a bit. But the whole critical idea is you put it in some place where there's already one of these vents that is warm, but the air is really toxic that's coming out of it. So when people are sleeping on this, not only are yes, they're staying warm, but they're inhaling like so much fumes and stuff. So the idea is you trap the warm air with its fumes and stuff in the airspace between these two tents or whatever. The interior is, like I say, it's sealed and it's getting its own ventilation, but you can run the ventilation through a tube that goes through that space so that the air gets warmed up. So you could run this on nothing but the warm air that's already there, converting each of these things, which is good for maybe two people to sleep on, exposed to the other elements, into a warming shelter that could accommodate, maybe a dozen people at a time. Just an idea. So the ambassador to China, the Canadian ambassador to China, I said yesterday that he was speaking with, I don't remember whether I said he was speaking with the Chinese press. He was speaking with press in Canada that reported news in Chinese languages. In China, they don't let you report the news in Cantonese anymore. You have to use Mandarin. But in Canada, Chinese people can get their news, I think, in either of those, in a few different Chinese languages. So he's trying to sort of backtrack on his he's gotten a bit of flack for, I don't know, he's trying to, anyway. South California, this sinkhole opened up between a couple of condos, like right under some trees. So there's condos in this neighborhood, this town, SoCal. And it's just another, this is happening all over the place. We're living in the age where we've done so much damage, to the crust, the Earth's crust that we live on. There's just, the Earth is opening up all over the place around us. It's insane. Also insane, no tobogganing at Riverdale Park, and the mayor is really concerned about this. He just found out about it recently, and he is going to, really go to bat for this Riverdale Park situation, because right now you can't. They've put up fencing and stuff. They say that the ground is unsafe and everything like that, trying to spoil fun over safety concerns. The the Canadian Pediatric Society is trying to advise parents. They're backstepping on their previous advice about like how to prevent your kids from growing up allergic to the most common allergens. They're like, okay, certain kids are vulnerable to getting super allergic. And before they said, just don't feed them this stuff while they're super young. Now they're saying, no, you have to, you should. We were wrong. Apparently Bombardier is shafting New York City as well as us. It's really like they've taken on way too much, and they're just like, oh, we can just sort of delay everybody. So remember the like weird noise complaint situation in Kingston where the RCMP wouldn't say whether or not they were operating some kind of plane in the area that was making strange sounds that residents were complaining about? It was an RCMP plane. They were doing a quote unquote national security investigation, and they have detained some people. Sorry, I'm too irreverent. Like, I got to take this a little bit. I do take it seriously. Like, that's the thing. I do take it really seriously. So Paul McCartney he's not coming to Toronto. He's not coming to Montreal. He's coming to Vancouver. He's going to come to Vancouver. So there was this on there's an Air Transat plane at Jean Lesage International Airport where it was on the tarmac, and people get like dizzy and vomiting and stuff like that from something they're inhaling in the cabin. This is CTV News reported this. So I don't know. This is so weird. When the CBC reported on this, they didn't mention. It's funny what they didn't mention. They're reporting on this plan that the immigration minister, Ahmed Hussein, is announcing at this event. He announced it in Sudbury. And it's basically, on the surface, it looks like the temporary foreign workers program that we already have that's very unpopular. It's a disaster. It's really sketchy. So maybe it's like a fixed version of that. Right. So the temporary foreign workers program, that was like, it started with quote unquote skilled labor, and it continued with, I love this, some American spokesperson recently said something, the people who shower before work versus the people who shower after work. So it started with the people who showered before work and ended, and then started including the people who showered after work, and then that became the majority of the program. We're talking about, underpaid, exploited farm workers and stuff in rural areas. So now Ahmed Hussein is like, I want to put together this new project for basically that. But when CBC News wrote an article about it, they're like, they don't mention the temporary foreign workers program. But why not? So so a group of 7 painting worth $200,000 stolen from a Toronto home, according to the Globe and Mail. The CBC News reports that the new Canadian Food Guide recommendations, a challenge for BC food banks. So, so food banks, and you know what the other place is going to be? Prisons. And you know what the other place is going to be? The military. And schools, and all these places that have been, using basically the old food guide was it was kind of a loophole for everybody, for a whole bunch of people to deliver really terrible nutrition really cheap, and so food banks included. So the new food guide is actually based on nutrition and not on industry and whatever. So it actually makes distinctions between, like, it's actually like, canned is inferior to fresh, like use fresh. And so the bar has been raised, and now that the official stuff actually reflects the sort of baseline of modern dietary thinking, it's too onerous for soup kitchens. surprise, surprise, soup kitchens have crappy food, and food banks have crappy food. So Bloomberg is reporting a huge spike in BNN. Bloomberg reporting a huge spike in, a rise in transporting crude oil by rail. We call them bomb cars. There's a couple of different kinds of bomb cars. There's there's an intentional kind, where you're doing a car bomb detonation as like an attack or something, and then there's the unintentional kind, which is sort of ends up being a form of terrorism, which is all these rail cars. All the rail lines are just potential sources of massive explosions and huge fuel leaks and deadly fires and Lac-Mégantic level disasters and stuff. And that's really the big one of the selling points for pipelines is that pipelines will destroy air. They put those disasters, those industrial disasters, way out in the middle of nowhere, where we can just have this huge strip that is a toxic wasteland forever, and it's a barrier for everything, and we can have a whole bunch of them crisscrossing and just turn the country into a Swiss cheese of just completely useless spaces, unmanageable cleanup jobs, and that works because those don't have to run through. Rail is not good for transporting stuff that's going to explode all over the place, because it just goes through all these inhabited, highly like Toronto is just going to have occasional rail disasters and big explosions and stuff, and along with a whole bunch of other municipalities, but also the rail routes are going to be affected by the presence of this extremely hazardous stuff traveling through them. So that, along with the Venezuelan situation, also reported on by the CBC. They wrote this article: less Venezuelan oil could be good news for Canadian producers, but lack of pipelines holds back potential. So it's all about destroying the wilderness out in the middle of nowhere in order to pollute more than anybody can afford to do for any future inhabitability of the earth, for short-term shoring up of our economy that turns Canada into, like I said, a wasteland that you can't make money off of in the future. So it's like, oh man, good luck making money off it. We'll be able to do lots of toxic tours, but that's all we'll be able to do. It's like, do you want to go for the toxic tour over there, or all of Canada is just going to become a big toxic tour? Actually, we could be the toxic tourism. One of the, it'll be Canada, China, but there's not going to be any shortage of toxic tourism, so it's not really going to be valuable. The Mission City Record is reporting a rock from a comet slams into the moon during the eclipse, and telescopes capture the moment of impact during the eclipse. That I want to see. So Richard Taylor, he's this teacher from Hamilton. He's been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in relation to the deaths of his mother, Carla Rutherford, and his stepfather, Alan, who died in a fire at their Dundas home in July of 2018. And this is reported by the spec.com. This guy intentionally burned these 2 people, apparently for financial reasons. Ouch. And so that it's super windy. It's super cold. Have a great Friday. TGIF.